Estulin is working on a lot of new stuff right now, and he joins us. So fantastic to be able to get him on, a very busy guy. And again, Paul Watson is from England. He's sitting in the wings in case I have any technical problems, and I'm here on the ground with Aaron Dykes, of course, Rob Jacobson, Richard Reeves, and others. I just want to salute all the great folks that are out here. It's amazing to see the light of liberty in all their eyes. Daniel Estulin, wonderful to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, brother. How you doing, man?
I am good, Daniel. Please tell us, I talked to you yesterday. You say you've got some amazing intel on Bilderberg from your source. What's happening in the world of Bilderberg from your perspective?
Well, I think without wasting too much time, we can go into this morning's discussion, Alex, if you want. We can start with that, and then we can maybe talk a little bit about what they're planning to do over the next couple of days. Now, one of the key conclusions from this morning is that the United States wants the dollar to fall in value against the Chinese yuan. Now, obviously, this is not a great piece of news. A lot of us who have been into this, we've known about this for a long time. But it's interesting, the actual discussion itself and the development of how these people at this meeting, about 125 individuals, who have a lot of power amongst them and between them, how they actually went about talking about this whole idea of destroying the value of the United States dollar against the Chinese yuan. Now, naturally, Washington won't be able to publicly say that. So what they do is they do the next best thing. They make it politically feasible to blame China for all the problems that have beset the United States. Now, Washington shifts the blame to China, when in reality, what Washington wants is, again, according to what these people talked about, a devalued dollar. Number two, the inflation a devalued dollar will cause. And number three, obviously, you can inflate away its debt and obligation. Thing is, the people are the guinea pigs in all of this, especially the American people. Your wealth, our wealth is at risk. The purchasing power of the United States dollar is obviously being sacrificed at the expense of everything that we've talked about right now. And now, Bilderberg is concerned with yet another Lehman-type mega shock. That's something else that these people talked about this morning. Without concluding, they'll be talking about more about this afternoon. Now, one of the key discussions from this morning, again, dealt with a very real possibility of bank runs, the final nail in the coffin of any modern economy. Now, remember, last year, Alex, we witnessed a very similar contagion when investors stampeded from the bonds of the weakest European countries. Now, we've talked about this a couple of years ago. If you remember, about 2.5 years ago, we said this was going to happen, and of course, it's happening right now. And much like today, the first to be attacked was Greece, and it will be again the weakest link in the chain. Then comes Spain, then comes Portugal, and then comes Italy and France. Although Italy is a very interesting case scenario. A lot of people will talk about Italy going down, but again, according to my sources within the group, Italy will never go down because it has this funny little institution called the Vatican, which of course will sustain the entire system of Italy in place.
Okay, Daniel, let me go through this. Again, some of them did arrive last night. There's some there now, more arriving here in the next few hours. Some of their jets are coming in now here in Virginia. But specifically from my sources, they had wanted to implode the economy, but not quick enough to wake people up. Give me your inside take on that. And are things getting out of control for them, or is this implosion just part of their takeover? You know, in my film Endgame, 6 years ago, we talked to you.
A very good point, Alex. It's, first of all, the discussion is, the Bilderberg meeting is up and running. It started this morning. Some people obviously are coming, such as the case of some of the participants from overseas. But again, the meeting it starts on Thursday, it ends on Saturday midday. Then, of course, they go for their boat ride or golf game. But the point is, the meeting does start this morning. It did start at about 8:30 this morning. And again, the key point which was discussed this morning is the destruction of the United States dollar. And obviously, the whole thing about what's coming up is, as one Bilderberger said this morning, and I quote, Europe and the United States are now on a collision course with a second Lehman-type mega shock. And the key questions asked this morning, is this worse than 2008? So obviously, for people who are not there at the meeting yet, because they haven't quite arrived due to their personal commitments, are certainly missing on some very interesting information. And if you remember, again, in 2008, just to fill in the people very quickly, it was strictly individual financial institutions that were on the edge of collapse. Today, the entire nations are on the brink. The banking system is on the brink. Spain is on the brink. Every Spanish bank basically is junk quality.
And you and others said that they were planning this to take control and offer their Bank of the World. I know Van Rompuy is set to speak, one of the heads of the EU, on having a global bank as the solution to the crisis they created. But my question simply is, are they losing control, or are things going according to plan? Because from some of my sources...
It's a very good question. It's a very difficult question to answer. You see, we can talk about whether they're losing control by how much. You see, the whole bailout is a giant trap. Now, under the guise of saving the economy, what they have done is they've transferred huge amounts of debt from the private hands, from the banks and other powerful interests to the books of the government. But because the economies continue to collapse through this entire period, now this debt is absolutely unpayable. There's no way that this debt can ever be paid. So the effect of this is to bankrupt the government, and we can see that in Greece. We're seeing it right now in Spain. I live in Spain, and it's Greek tragedy we're seeing around us. People losing everything that they've ever earned in the last 40, 50 years of hard work. Now, the real purpose of the bailout, of course, is to finish the destruction of the government that this inter-alpha process began. And, of course, inter-alpha came in right after the Bretton Woods Agreement was destroyed in 1971. It's the collection of banks led by some of the biggest banks, such as Banco Santander in Spain, who control about 70% of world's money. And the whole point, again, as you can see it in Europe, for example, all the negotiations trying to save the debt, and then again, some of the things they will be talking about over the next day and a half or so. And one nation after another is falling to corporatist dictatorship. And that's the real issue here, Alex. You're watching the nations of the world being destroyed and being replaced by fascist dictatorship, something that you've often talked about over the past few years, using the same terminology I'm using right now, and again, I'm quoting
Sure,
you.
they're putting the technocrats in.
Dictatorship, an international, global, fascist, or imperial dictatorship.
Fascist technocrats. Now, Brzezinski has said that people are waking up and they're scared. Do you agree that that's really what the elite are saying? What do you think the Bilderberg is saying about unprecedented coverage, thanks to your work and so many others' work in Europe and now the U.S., the electronic Berlin Wall falling? What's your take on that, Daniel?
You know, on the one hand, it's great that we're getting so much attention, especially with people such as yourself in the States working the net, working the crowds. But on the other hand, again, there's just simply not enough people, especially when you compare it to, such popular events as, I don't know, a Lady Gaga concert or a football championship, a Super Bowl. I mean, it would be great if we could get 500,000 people to come out and stand in front of the hotel and actually say no to this thing, but we don't have that. I don't know how many thousands of activists.
Well, they beat up protesters they beat up protesters for 30 years to create a chilling effect and intimidate them at G20.
I absolutely understand, but again, the price of freedom, someone has to pay it. You're doing it in Europe. In the States, I'm doing it in Europe. There's Jim Tucker. There's a lot of people out there doing what they're supposed to, but unfortunately, again,
sure.
I really wish that there were more of us doing out there, more people coming out, because again,
I agree with you. Daniel Estulin, what else is